So let's jump right in. So who is Recalc? We'll introduce ourselves briefly for those of you we don't know. We do see a lot of familiar faces. It's awesome to see you guys. So we are a company focused on making it really easy to learn the skills you need to succeed in your career. So with a focus on technical skills. So we started as a spreadsheet training company and expanded to finance, accounting, financial modeling. We work with a lot of private equity firms, growth equity firms. We also work with a lot of diversified companies, really every single different team member, HR, finance, project management, engineering, scientists have come to our spreadsheet fundamentals classes. So that's our DNA, is make it easy for you to be successful in your job with the hard skills you need to succeed. And recently, AI has become, I think the transformative moment that we're at is that AI is suddenly easy enough that non-technical people can use it to save time in their job now. And that's going to be dramatically more the case over the next few months and certainly years. So we're trying to stay on top of that and share knowledge as things change in the ecosystem, as this becomes usable in real life, get that knowledge out there and share that with you. We're doing sessions like this so that people can learn real time. And then we're also working with companies to help their teams sort of learn more in their internal environment with the tooling that they're setting up. So just who are we specifically? I'm Katie. I started my career at Audax Group, which is a middle market private equity firm out of Boston. Spent most of my life in an investing seat. Also have held some finance roles inside of growing companies, tech and construction. And I'm joined by my colleague, Suzanne, who spent the beginning part of her career in investment banking at JP Morgan, and then worked at General Mills and 3M leading P&Ls, brand P&Ls. So our whole mission is to really blend our finance background and our operating background and bring you the skills you need to succeed in your job. So let's jump into the fun stuff, which is why we're here. So what are we talking about today? We're running, if you didn't join us a couple weeks ago, we've recently kicked off an AI learning series. And so each of these sessions is just an hour, and we try to tackle a new topic that's come up in AI and using that in your job. So our topic a couple weeks ago was basically using AI for data work. If you missed that, we put all of it on our website. So go check it out there, including the video. And then what we're here to talk about today is this thing called GPTs. So one of the kind of funny things in AI is like everything seems to be called the same thing. Like there's a million different co-pilots and there's lots of cheap GPTs and chat GPTs. What do we mean by this? So OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, announced at their dev day last week this new feature called GPTs. GPTs are basically the ability to create personalized AI assistants. So tailored to the knowledge base that you're interested in them being focused on, the prompt or basically like type of focus that you would like to, and behavior you would like to have, and actions, which is the ability for it to talk to other things through tools like a Zapier. So we're going to walk you through how to build a simple one and then also walk through how to add actions into that. What I will say, and we'll talk a little bit about the trade-offs of making something that's like a GPT versus you can do a lot of similar things that are exposed through OpenAI's APIs. So there's something called the Assistant API where you can get access to some of this functionality, but with more of like a coding hat on and maybe merge it into some of the other tools that you have in your org or your personal life. Okay, so we created a GPT. Oh, actually, yeah, let's talk about why this is exciting. So I think this is insanely exciting. Maybe that's just me, but I don't think so. For enterprise in particular, because you're going to be able to, for those companies that get ChatGPT Enterprise, you'll be able to create one of these assistants and share it inside of the walls of your enterprise. So anyone in your enterprise will have access to it, but people outside of your enterprise will not. And I think all of a sudden that opens up a lot of possibility for business applications. And so imagine having an HR assistant that answers all your frequently asked HR questions, or an IT assistant that knows about your support like systems and then can basically answer basic questions or triage, trigger an action for your team to do something if it's not as simple or needs a human intervention. A fun one that we plan to play around with is like create our ideal customer persona, like our ICP, and then have it review all of our marketing materials for us. I'm a finance nerd trying to learn sales and marketing, so marketing is not my strength. To have a bot that can help and like sit over my shoulder and be like, no, the marketing should look like this, that will be awesome. You could imagine legal assistants. My impression is OpenAI even has their own like legal assistant internally, so like they can turn contracts faster and stuff like that, that their own team can use. So there's honestly like endless possibilities here. And I think what I would say is like the technology is still imperfect and kind of buggy. One of the things you may see live is like ChatGPT is really throttling users right now because they're overwhelmed. So they announced like yesterday, you can't sign up for ChatGPT Plus for a little while they like get things under control. And you may, as I live demo, see me get shut out of ChatGPT. It happens a lot. So we'll see how the live demo goes. But with all of that said, like there's a learning curve, and the sooner you jump into it, the faster you'll start like learning that experimentation, like how to actually prompt successfully. And you'll start like all of a sudden you'll start having all these creative ideas of how you might apply this. And then I think it's like those skills that will translate, whether it's ChatGPT and like making GPTs that wins, or whether it's Microsoft Copilot or some other tools. There's so many different tools that are proliferating in the system now. And I think it's hard to anticipate like 2 years from now, what will we be using and what will the world look like? But these are the things we want to learn along the way so that we can take the most advantage of that at that time. And I would also say is if you're going to build stuff through the API, it's kind of fun to spin up a quick version of it as a GPT and then talk to whoever's on your technical team and say, hey, I want something like this, but with these tweaks through the API. And there are some reasons for using the API, which largely relate to ability to talk to other systems that you may have. And then also the data privacy piece and not training on your data. They've been fairly clear, although this is not legal advice, that they don't use your data if you're passing it through the API. On the kind of individual consumer toy side, you can make fun things that help you or others learn, and then take advantage of the ones that other people have made. We're going to show you how we made a little investment banker bot for our students to practice technical questions. It is actually like pretty good. I'm happy with it and like feel like it's actually pretty useful for our students. So let's go to the next page. And we will share these slides. Quick warning on this page, and then we'll show you a few other examples that we've seen out in the wild, and also places to go find a lot of these bots. So number one, don't put sensitive data into GPTs unless like for sure, if you're not using an enterprise version. It is something that they can train their own models on, and other people can also find ways of accessing if they know how to ask the right questions. One of the things that's maybe a little surprising on this to some users is we're going to show you how you upload documents to your GPT, like prior knowledge, like here's what my sales proposal looks like. Make sure you don't upload documents that you would not want somebody extracting, because if they're clever with how they prompt, they can get the AI to actually give them the document. And there have been some examples of that have been talked about online. So just be cognizant of that. I think the two things that a lot of people are looking at is ChatGPT Enterprise, which is like a company-wide version that has much stronger data protections. And then the API, as you pass stuff through the API, they've said they're not using that to train. So those are a couple of options. But I think we can get our hands dirty and start playing with GPTs in a way that's not exposing sensitive data, and it really contributes to learning and is also fun and useful. So let's keep going here. So we'll share these slides. This is just a bunch of links to places that you can find GPTs other people have made. So one of the things that's coming down the line is going to be what they're calling like a GPT store, which is going to be like an app store hosted by OpenAI. But for now, that doesn't exist. So like when you see me sign into my OpenAI account or my ChatGPT account, you're going to see like the ones that I've bookmarked basically or created myself. But you can go through and search for lots of enterprising people have created little places, little websites for discovery. And so these are just a handful of different websites where you can discover a lot of the ones people have made and posted to those websites, because you can make the GPT in such a way that anyone with the link can access it. So these are a couple of ideas for you to go explore. Suzanne, do you want to maybe comment on a few of the fun ones you've seen so far?
Yes. So on any of these libraries, you can also, for the most part, search just by keyword. So on the right, we've just, you can search for, a lot of them are around being an expert tutor or a mentor or a teacher in a certain area. So people have uploaded their specific knowledge or tailored the GPT so that it's just focused on that area. And you can search by business topic. If you just search roast my, you can upload your startup, your business deck, and have it kind of roast it and give it a lot of good feedback. You can roast your outfit for the day and have them critique kind of what you are wearing. You can visit a Michael Scott GPT where it's just Michael Scott jokes and commentary. A good one for this time of year, a holiday gift guide. So I just searched this morning for my kids based on their age and things they're into. And it actually gave me a very relevant list with a couple things that have now made it onto our list for the holidays. So just a lot of really fun and creative ideas, and you can just kind of search around and look to see kind of what would be relevant to you. There's also an X Optimize, which is a tweet optimizer, and it's a someone with a lot of Twitter presence that has gone and uploaded all of their Twitter metrics to say, okay, these are the tweets that perform the best. And that's going to feed kind of the critique and feedback it gives you as you like input text to optimize your tweets. So a lot of interesting ideas already floating out there.
Cool. Awesome. And there were a couple questions in the chat. We'll address a couple of these. There's one, which is, do any of these libraries share the configuration of the GPT? Generally, no, but there's a lot of people blogging and doing YouTube videos on how they've set up their GPT. You can also ask the GPT about itself, and get some guidelines on maybe how it was prompted, or maybe some of the information it has access to, even if you're not going to get access to that exact information, to give you ideas for how you might create your own. And then there's a question on data security. Data security is like a huge issue here, and do not put anything in, I think the general guidance is, do not put anything that you would not just want on the internet into a regular GPT outside of the enterprise environment. Okay, with that said, let's jump in and see how we make a GPT. So I will screen share. We're going to attempt live, but demoing live software is always a little dicey, and demoing live AI software where the whole world tries to use it and everyone gets throttled is that much more challenging. We'll see if ChatGPT feels like cooperating today. So I have pulled up my screen. This is my ChatGPT interface. And so where we find the GPTs is going to be if you hit Explore. And this gives you the interface to create a new GPT. It also shows you your recently used ones. And then a bunch of ones that have been made by OpenAI. There's some fun, mostly kind of consumer play type stuff, like creating storybooks and stuff like that. So we're going to create a GPT. This brings me into the GPT builder. And the cool thing here is you don't need to have any technical skills. You just start speaking to it. We can start in this create window, which is kind of like a high level. It'll Q&A, ask you some questions, or you tell it some things, and it tries to start setting up your bot. You then have full configurability under configure. I've made a few of these now, so honestly, I'm tempted to just start with configure, but I'm going to show you the process more from the beginning. And so we're going to rebuild our investment banker bot. So when I was building the bot, I started with a pretty simple prompt. I'm pasting some of these in so we can be efficient with our time. But basically, I said, I want to create a bot to help my students prepare for investment banking interviews. I would like it to be focused on technical questions. I'd like it to let us know if the answers are correct and provide feedback or explanations or coaching or whatever. And it's going to start thinking and building me my bot, my tailored AI assistant. I think one of our biggest learnings in this process has been that the prompting really matters. A short 1-paragraph prompt like this will get us started, but it's not going to be, and actually it's not bad. How do I calculate WACC? What are key drivers of M&A success? These are investment banking questions. This is relevant already. And then it's saying, do I want to call this finance coach? Okay, sure. I'm okay with that. Or I could just tell it a different name. We can change it later as well. It will also make me, or try to make me, an image for this, which is kind of fun. You can always make your own images on, regular DALL-E as well, which is the image generator in the ChatGPT ecosystem. So this is going to give us a starting point, but it's probably not as dialed in as I would like. And so very quickly, we're going to move over to configure. And that is a very stereotypical image, which I don't like. We're going to change that one. But it's okay. So now we're going to, you can keep going back, it'll help you refine the tone. And basically what it's helping you do here is work on your prompt. You can go back and forth to work on your prompt. But what we found is I'd actually rather just flip over to ChatGPT and work on the prompt myself. and then paste the final prompt that I want into here. And where into here is going to be configure. So we're going to change the name of this. We're going to call it investment banking technical prep assistant, something like that. And then I don't like this image, so I'm going to change it. But we'll do that in a second. I'm just going to upload a different image, or I'll show you where you can also make an image. And then we can say, you know, investment banking tech coaching or technical coaching. And you can see how easy it is to change. It's whatever, you know, whatever you want it to be. This does show up, like if you actually want to put your GPT out into the world, this shows up in a lot of places. So shorter tends to be better. And now we can see here, this is the prompt that it created for me. And it's very much in the lines, along the lines of what I coached it to. It's improved the prompt slightly. Now, and then it gives me conversation starters. I might want to change some of those. So the idea of the conversation starter is it's something people can click when they come use your GPT for the first time. So it kind of like starts the conversation. It is the question that will be asked to the bot. So I actually don't want them so much asking questions. Like they're welcome to ask questions if they want concepts explained, but I really want the bot to be quizzing them and testing their understanding. So I'm going to change these a little bit. I'm going to say, we're going to have it just say what we want to practice. So they can pick accounting questions or valuation or general questions or whatever. So you can see how you would play around with that. We don't have to have so many questions. So now they're going to be able to do this. And then we're going to upload files to the knowledge here. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to click this to change the photo, and I'm going to click this to upload a file. The file I'm going to upload here is going to be this a set of common investment banking questions that I want it to focus on. So what I found, and this is an iterative process, what I found when I was training the bot was it was asking all sorts of questions. Some of them are not likely to come up in interviews, so I don't really want to waste my students' time. So I put this document together. This is like the questions that I feel like my students need to be most prepared on. So that's kind of like where I came into the picture. Interestingly, I ended up with an excellent bot, and I did not tell it a single answer, which is kind of insane. Like like I did say it's by Recalc Academy, but there's zero Recalc Academy knowledge in there except for like, please focus on these questions, which I think is surprising to. I mean, it was surprising to me, frankly, but investment banking is a topic area that there are tons and tons of online guides around. They're hard to wade through. They're not all correct, but I find that what it has general knowledge of is very good. So I am on my other screen uploading that, and I'm going to upload a different image, and we're going to flip back to this screen. Okay, so we now have a fun little owl. I created this. It's too time intensive a process for our live demo here, but basically I went to Dolly and I asked it for help with a prompt around like a fun image for this bot. It generated, it was its idea to do an owl, whatever. It's good enough. It's kind of fun. And then we have this, I uploaded the file here. So this is where you can upload files. This is as you read about this online, this is what's called retrieval. And so anytime you want it, like it basically is knowledge that it can know about. Now, it's kind of interesting how you craft the prompt. When I did this the first time, it was getting confused and thinking that the user had told it about this file. And it was like, what do you want to do with the file? So I had to actually revise the prompt to say, this is something you know about. These are questions I want you to focus on. You should not only ask questions from this list, they should just be your inspiration, and so on and so forth. So the prompting is a very iterative process, and I actually moved out of this edit interface when I did this into just regular ChatGPT and iterated with it. Now, I think writing, a 300-word or a much longer prompt is very intimidating if you just think, I have to sit down and write this. Like, I'm not good at that for sure, and I think most people are not that good at it. You do get better as you practice it. But the fun thing is, like, it's actually just an iterative process with ChatGPT itself. The bot is doing this, I want it to do this. The bot is asking multi-part questions, I want single-part questions. If it has 2 questions to ask, have it ask them sequentially. The bot is stopping to ask questions, I want it to keep asking until the person is done. So I'm just telling it the problem and saying, fix the prompt. And it will just say, sure, okay, I can rewrite the prompt. So I went through that very iterative process And I eventually ended up with a much longer prompt. So, and that's actually what takes the time, I would say, is like the experimentation with what prompting is going to work. Like this whole exercise was, I mean, a first draft that was pretty good was like 30 minutes. It's not like a wild amount of time, but almost all of the 30 minutes was spent doing a prompt. And so my ending prompt was something that looked like this. So it was like, this is who you are, this is how I want you to act. Don't do these things, do these things. This is what you know about, and so on. All of this text is in the deck, and it's also, we did a blog post on this. It's also on our website. I think the art here is just having the patience to go iteratively, like see what the bot, test what the bot does, see what it does, and like go back and forth so that you can get to a prompt that you want. And actually, the way you would have tested that, I'm sort of skipping over doing it, is right here in this interface, you can interact with your bot. So like I could just say hi, and then it should say, like, it should greet me. ChatGPT is being fairly, it's actually okay right now, but I won't jinx it, but it's been fairly slow this morning. So can you walk me through a DCF? I could, or I could say, I forget. And it will just tell, it will say, no problem. Let me or go ahead and it will tell me how I should use this, or how I should think about a DCF or whatever. I see a question in the chat. Let's say 2 or more files have been uploaded. So Suzanne, do you want to comment? We built a sales proposal bot. Do you want to just comment a little bit on what we, how we thought about like one versus many file, like before we go there, like I would say like there is no like one right answer on some of this stuff. Like a lot of it takes experimentation. So one of the other bots we built was, I wish to never write another sales proposal in my life. I hate writing sales proposals. Like, and I think GPT, I mean, all the privacy considerations keeping in mind. So like some of this will have to wait for like more enterprise land, but like I wish to have AI assist me with all the things I never want to do again. So sales proposals is one of those. And so we said, okay, we write a lot of very similar proposals, particularly for our finance audience. But they all have kind of tweaks like, is this a software investor or not? Is this an analyst training or an associate training? Like, is this happening in a compressed time frame or it's more spread out? So, but there's not like an unlimited set of variability, but it does take some judgment. And so could we get an AI assistant to basically take some input from us and do that? So that's something Suzanne worked on. And that actually is a place where we experimented with, should we put it all in the prompt? Should we upload some knowledge? Like, should we upload many different files? And you have to experiment. And it's not like you can be super lazy. Like, I almost think of it as like, if you were to dump this on an analyst desk, like a junior person's desk on your team, is this level of instruction you're giving sufficient to see them be successful? If it's not, it's probably not sufficient to let AI be successful if it's confusing. So Suzanne, over to you on the sales proposal.
Yeah, sure. All right, so we created this sales proposal. We called it Proposal Architect, which I kind of like. That's just exactly what ChatGPT gave us. And you can see on the left-hand side, same exact interface that Katie was just showing. This is our configure screen. We ended up, I started with a very short prompt, and I went through a lot of iterations on the preview side. What kind of training is this? So the question, and so you can see it's pretty long. There's specific sections of our proposal that I had to give very specific instructions for. A lot of that is around possibly conflicting information from our different documents. So I would say if you don't clarify that, the GPT is just going to guess. It's going to do its best guess to think what it is that you want to see. Where I had to spend a lot of time is you can see in my knowledge section here, I have 4 different proposals here. As a start, we have many more that I probably need to, that's my next phase of building this out more, but 4 base proposals. And initially I had this all in one document, and it was just taking way too long to explain that and have it pull correctly in the prompt. So I ended up, let me experiment with separating those out into separate documents. And it worked much easier to pull the right stuff. And that was a very iterative process, working with the preview. It's still sometimes if I'm just give me training for private equity associate training. I haven't given it a lot of detail. It's going to start assuming things. But in my prompt, I specifically said at different data points, do not assume, like, if this information is not provided by the user, ask for it very explicitly. And do not guess, do not insert additional. Sometimes it started to like do its own summaries and insert it as well. I had to be very specific about what information I wanted it to clarify with the user, where I wanted it to pull from. So that has taken a lot of effort, but now it is working pretty well. Not 100%, but pretty well to pull and then prompt the user to give the relevant information. So it was a very iterative process to do that.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, so we have our little bot. It seems to be doing okay. The next thing we have to do is choose what capabilities it should have. So capabilities that are potential capabilities are web browsing, creating images, and then code interpreter is basically its ability to do math and write code. It's like critical for it to do logical math, because basically LLMs, these models are next word predictors. They will totally hallucinate if they just use the next word prediction to do math. But what they are good at is writing code. The way they do math is they write code to do the math and they run the code. So you definitely want code interpreter on if any like mathematical logical thinking is needed. So I'm leaving that one on. That's definitely key to an investment banking bot, like particularly for asking accounting questions. I don't need the Dolly image generation on here per se for this investment banking bot, and web browsing is probably okay. Particularly if I decided to add in like one of the iterations I could do from here is say, maybe if they're having an area of weakness, suggest some online resources or suggest some Recalc resources or something like that. That could be something we could do. Actions we're going to talk about in a minute, not in this bot, but this create new action is basically the ability for the bot to call, like to interact with something outside of the bot. Call Zapier and have it send an email on your behalf, or interact with anything Zapier interacts with, which is like 6,000 different things. So, and then additional settings. So this is like kind of annoyingly hidden, but if you expand it, this is basically, should we use the conversation data in our GPT to improve our models or not? And then you can choose whether to check that or not. I don't really care for the purpose of investment banking bot, because I haven't really uploaded anything that I would consider to be proprietary at all. But you obviously might care about this for some other applications. When we're done, we can save. And you can save in multiple ways. You can save only me. That's going to be private bot for just you. That might be appropriate if you build yourself like a personal assistant bot and it talks to a lot of your other tools. Like that probably isn't something you'd put out on the internet. Only people with a link. This is basically what most of them are right now. And then public is just like only people with a link. But when they open the store, it gives them the like, okay, to basically put it right in the store. I would, for our purposes today, I wouldn't consider these to be really any different. But if you want it to be in the store someday, you can make it public. You can try to edit this. Unfortunately, like the name is not that editable because it comes off your billing information. So my full name is Catherine Pfeiffer, so it's on my credit card. And then you can hit confirm and we have our bot. So we'll see if it decides to successfully think here. This should create us a bot and we can start playing with that. So now we're back in our interface. It's a little confusing because I made two that looked basically the same. But what this does, so this is investment banking technical prep assistant is the one that I just made. And we can go back to the place that you find the edit interface is a little bit hidden. You click this and you go to edit GPT. We'll be right back where we started a minute ago. And then you can also copy the link and send it to your friends. You can go back to, if you go back to explore, you'll see how many people have used it. It shows like a little counter there. And then we're off to the races and we can start using it. And I could say, I want to practice, let's say I want to practice accounting questions, and it's going to start asking me, accounting questions and so on. So we've created our first GPT in front of our eyes. What I want to flip over and talk about now is actions, because setting up actions has some good potential to it. I would say it's still a tiny bit buggy and a little bit tricky, but I think it's worth understanding how to use. So I'm going to flip the screen share back to Suzanne. I would say the main action that people are generally using that is like mostly works out of the box is Zapier. So Zapier partnered with OpenAI. And if Zapier, for anyone that's not familiar with it, is a workflow automation tool, and it basically lets you connect your different systems and automatically push data and and information between those systems. So go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you. This was actually just asked in terms of how do we connect it to other software tools. So we're going to go through specifically how you would connect to Zapier as a very common one, because you can basically from that connect to so many different of your applications just giving the Zapier interface. So as Katie mentioned, actions allow you to connect the GPT to outside applications and then execute actions on its behalf. So you could be, so we just looked at the proposal architect. Like one of the next phases is once we create our sales proposal, can we have the GPT actually just add it to our Google Drive, our company drive, and then add it to a draft of email for me? So that is an action that if you link it to Zapier and then connect it to your applications, you can allow right within the GPT. Now, as is with all the data privacy, we want to be very careful about doing that with any publicly available GPT, but you can imagine with enterprise GPTs, the power of being able to create these assistants to automate a lot of these processes that are just, several steps today that can just be kind of you create the proposal and you're done. We also have an example of a networking GPT that we're working on that can help students create networking emails and LinkedIn posts. And then not only will it help you kind of draft it according to different inputs that we've provided, it will then be able to send it to LinkedIn for you to post. It will be able to send it directly to your Gmail to send as well. So that is really the power of actions and where a lot of this is going to go. And I'm going to actually try if it's going to try to walk through it live here. Let me just share my, and we're going to do it again specifically for a Zap, specifically for connecting with Zapier. So we're going to go to Explore. We're going to go to create a GPT just like you would any other. I'm going to skip right to configure for the interest of our time here. Let's get this down. Sorry. And we're just going to, this is just going to be a test and action. Our description of what we're going to do is we're going to be able to create an email draft. We'll say a professional email draft. And we would give, a draft, professional email based on the prompt given. Now, this would be a lot more thorough if you're actually doing this, but that would be kind of setting up the initial, configuration of what we want the GPT to do. Then we would go to create a new action. So down below at the bottom, creating a new action here. And it's going to bring you to a new screen that we haven't seen before. It's an add action screen. We're going to go to import from our URL. And here is where this is going to be very specific to Zapier. So there's a link that Zapier gives you where you can input that directly into the import URL section and just press import.
To be clear, like this is the link for everyone. Like it's the same link. It's not like my specific Zapier link or Suzanne's link. This is like Zapier's link that they made. So you literally just copy it off their website or our slide deck.
Yeah, it's on their website, but this is all the link is code. And it automatically drops that code into your schema. So we've updated kind of our thing. If I go, it will update here. If I go back, I'm just going to click at this point, save. I'm going to do only me for the purposes of this example. It's kind of annoying. I have to go back in and go to edit again, configure. And I'm back on my screen, but you can see on my configure screen down below in actions, it says actions.zapier.com. And that's all the callback URL, everything's kind of filled out for me. I didn't do any of that. Then the next step is to actually create our actions that we want to be able to call up in Zapier. So I'm gonna copy a link here, and this is all in our slides of the steps, but it's actions.zapier.com-gpt-start. This is going to be specific to me. So this is my AI actions for Zapier. If this is the first time you're setting it up, you're going to need to log into Zapier at this point. There are free kind of trial options. But once you get to this screen, basically you have to enable and configure each action that you want to be able to call in your GPT. So if you need to do this for the first time, you would go to add a new action. And it's a very easy interface. I would just type, okay, Gmail. It's going to bring up different options for me. I can send an email. Also, it will send it directly from the GPT. I want to just create a draft, so I have a little bit more control over it. I'm not putting email in there. And it's going to give you basically what are all my required fields. For the most part, you want to have AI guess a value for this field because it's going to input it from your GPT. There might be specific options that you don't want a value for that at all. So you want to show all the options and go through thoroughly to kind of lay out specifically what you want. You can put in your signature, etc. There's also an option down here to require a preview before running the actual action. For creating a draft, it's just going to put a draft in your email, so it's not necessarily as needed for this. But if you're sending an email, I would probably definitely have this checked so I can preview that in the next screen and then click run and it will actually run it. So I can actually see it before the GPT actually just sends the email. So typically I do have that checked. Then I just enable the action and it's going to show up on my action screen now. This is the one we just created and it should be toggled to green if I want to be able to call it up. The next step is I need to be able to basically put this in the instructions that I want the GPT. So this is the instructions part. That's where we put a lot of the time on our prompt, telling the GPT what we want it to do. So I need to somehow call that Zapier action here. Zapier is actually set up. So again, this link is in our slides as well for reference, an AI actions reference page. And if you scroll to the bottom, they have an instructions template for AI actions. And they've kind of written it all out for us. We can just copy this whole thing into the bottom of your instructions. So I obviously only have a line here, but if you have a much bigger prompt, you want to scroll all the way down to the bottom, put it after it does kind of the entire prompt you want it to do, and just paste it in there, copy paste. And what you want to be updating, so these are like standard instructions for Zapier custom actions. It's basically prompting the user. If they don't have a relevant AI action enabled, it will prompt you to go to the other screen, this AI action screen, and create the action. It will provide you the link to do that. So that's kind of standard in that prompt. And then you go to required actions. This is where I actually need to update what action do I want this app to do, or this GPT to do. So I'm going to delete. We're only going to do one action, the second one. And then here, for my action name, I'm just going to go into my actual action here, copy it verbatim. So I'm not kind of, at risk of typing anything wrong. I'm going to delete my confirmation link. And I'm actually just going to take the actual link from my AI action if I'm inside my relevant AI action here and paste that as my confirmation link. Zapier does give you the opportunity here they have like a natural language version of the link where you just input your setup action and the name of the action at the link. I actually think it's easier, and it seems to be working fine, to just copy the link itself. So then we have this all set up. I want to enable web browsing here. You can kind of play around with what that is. And then we can test. So we can just say, create an email, and I will just call up here. I'm actually just going to say, create a draft email summarizing these meeting notes. And I have some example meeting notes here. I always have to allow it to connect to Zapier. So it's checked, it's found that the action is available. It's going to ask me some questions. I'm going to say no email recipient, subject is meeting summary. And it's going to go through and hopefully create our action here. This is per GPT that you're setting kind of these actions up.
Although you set them up, like you set them up in the GPT, like Suzanne just showed you, in terms of like the instructions per GPT. But if you already created a Gmail create draft action in Zapier, you could reuse that across many GPTs.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do the Zapier setup a million times. It's more like setting up the GPT instructions.
There's also an example resource in the slides that's someone setting up an AI assistant that they basically just put like all of their relevant actions of like checking their calendar, creating an email draft, sending something to the drive, and it's just their assistant. So like anything they want to do, it has all of the actions there. So here it completed an email draft for me. It's because I had checked that box of reviewing it first. It has it here. I can click on it. It's going to, this is my Gmail draft. Its meeting summary has it has summarized project 1 and project 2 here. If I like it, then I can hit run. And that is actually going to go and put a draft in my actual Gmail. And if I looked over here in my Gmail, I can now see, which I'm not going to pull up because I have tons of drafts in there, but I can see a draft that is meeting summary. A nice, since we have web browsing, the other one that, I've used as an example also is you can like browse our website. And I said, just, create a summary of our spreadsheet fundamentals course. And it will just automatically create a summary for me and put it into an email draft to send. So that is kind of the power of actions. And I think I will stop sharing at this point. We can go back to our PowerPoint here.
So there's a couple of questions while we're going back. Can you put restrictions on web browsing? So you can check or uncheck the box as to whether the GPT should be able to browse the web. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but it won't be able to actively browse the web if you uncheck that. It still is trained on data, including a lot of data from the web through April 23, if you're using GPT-4. And then there was another chat question, which I think if I'm understanding correctly, basically is asking, can these GPTs sort of, I don't know if I'm understanding the question correctly, but like, can you have GPTs sort of work together or talk to each other? And I'm not aware that that's easy out of the box right now, but it's almost like a lot of people speculate that that's coming.
It's kind of available a little bit, if you're doing a Zap, I mean, this is the same integration, but kind of reverse. Like if you're constructing a Zap in your Zapier account, you can embed ChatGPT in there to like parse data. It's super helpful. And Zapier has their own AI as well, but you can also just have a conversation in the Zap itself. So that's one example kind of reversing this process, but I'm sure there's lots of others as well.
And then I see on the web search question, like, can you have it focus on parts of the web like Google Scholar and not the rest of the web? I would say that would be something to experiment with prompting. So it's not like they've given an interface to just say which parts of the web to search, but definitely like you can go very detailed on what you tell it to do or not do and dial that in. And what you have to do is just see what is the behavior you're getting and then tell it that you want slightly different behavior and keep iterating on that until you get the prompting that you want. One of the big announcements in Dev Day was a much longer, what's called context window. Basically, you can have basically like 300-page prompt if you want. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to write a 300-page prompt, but in terms of like just pure prompting language, but you can share a lot of information through that. Now, there's lots of research online that like there's like points of diminishing return or even like worse performance if you give it too much information. At first, I wanted to be super lazy and just be like, hey, here's links. You know, we've shared a lot of recordings of what we've taught in the past. Like, here's transcripts from those recordings that we've edited out participants and stuff like that. I'm fine with that being out there. And it was just confused because it was like, I didn't really structure it very well. I didn't really explain it very well. I was just like, here's a bunch of stuff, like, you know, be an interesting, helpful bot. And it like couldn't really handle that. So I think it's just like the art of the prompting here is really experiment. And what I would say, rather, like if you're in an org that doesn't have enterprise yet, which is probably most people on this call, I would still lean into trying this stuff out, even on fun little things like build yourself a recipe thing that's tailored to your taste or whatever. Like think of some fun creative ideas to just start playing with it, because I think that like the more time we spend on it, the more we learn, and like that learning will be applicable to the next stuff that comes out. And as the next, and it's like kind of overwhelming in a way how much stuff is coming out, how fast, and like how people are putting this into practice. And it will be that much more overwhelming if you just like wait. And it's pretty fun to start playing with. And obviously like be sensitive to not sharing. Like once the wheels start turning, you're gonna like want to use like real data because you're like, oh wow, I could like save all my time on all these ways. You have to be patient enough. What I'm thinking like we will do a bunch of internally is design like sort of spec out through GPTs, like quick, because it's so fast and easy, like the general behavior that we want. And then, you know, we have some more technical members of our team and then say, hey, like, I want something that's like this, like take the investment banking bot. I want something that behaves like this investment banking bot, but I want it to be on our website so that anybody can use it. Well, that you would have to build through the API. You can't, like right now, to access a GPT someone's made, you need ChatGPT Plus. Lots of our students don't have ChatGPT Plus. And so I want it, and it's also just like separate from our website. So I want it to be on our website. Well, that conversation took like 3 minutes with our more technical team member because she could already see like, okay, it needs to be like this. And there's an OpenAI API called the Assistant API where you can literally, it behaves the same way as this behaves, but then you can call it through an API and then integrate it to whatever else you want. So you can stand up a chat front end and put that on your own website or your own internal website or whatever else. Then you're passing data all through the API, and that is different from a data security perspective, much better, and also just like lets you embed it different places. Now you do pay for that. Right now, if I make a GPT that I just put online, I send you the link, I'm not paying for that beyond my just $20 a month subscription. OpenAI is paying for that usage. Versus if I make the same thing through an API and put it on my website, I will pay for that every time that you call the API. But the costs have come down a lot and are coming down like even more every day. And so I wouldn't expect something like that to be wildly expensive for the most part. The other, beyond just the experimentation, especially around prompting, like all the work to me goes into the prompting side of this. A little bit of the work goes into setting up actions. What I would say on actions, which you just saw through Zapier, is they are still kind of buggy and limited. So let's say we want to send the sales proposal to a Google Doc. It chokes a lot of the time. Like it will do 2 paragraphs and then it will quit. So it's just like a lot of people online have talked about those limitations. But again, you set that up, you show a developer and you're like, I want this, but through the API, they can probably make it work through the API, no problem. Anyways, so there's trade-offs, and I would say we're in experimentation mode. The one thing on images, you saw that little owl image we made. Dolly, if you haven't played around with it already, honestly, it's super fun to make images. They're like often hilarious, depending on what you prompt it with. But it's tempting when you get an image that's kind of what you want, but not quite, to be like, kind of like make it like that, but a little different in this way. It doesn't do that well with that. It's much better to go back to the original prompt, edit the prompt, and then have it regenerate an image and kind of iterate on the prompting. So that's the bulk of what we have learned so far. Suzanne, anything else we want to highlight before we turn it over to questions?
No, I think you covered it. I think, you know, the key point on actions being buggy, I didn't mention it during our walkthrough, but we have experimented with the sales proposal, adding stuff to the drive. And exactly as Katie mentioned, it has only given us the first 2 paragraphs of the overview, so not very helpful. So definitely a lot of kind of work to still be done on that side, but a lot of obviously exciting opportunity coming.
Our core thing we teach is data analysis and spreadsheets. Can do a lot on the data analysis and spreadsheet side, so highly recommend checking out that discussion from a couple of weeks ago. Again, it's in the links here and then also on our website. and we will send this out. So we'll stop sharing, and basically if you have questions, stick around, let's ask those questions. I love this stuff, so please feel free to email me, message me, etc. If you have stuff coming up.